Welcome to anyone watching, it's Craig at mysimpit.co.uk and welcome to part 5 of the right console build. In this video we're going to look at the construction of the right console frame and then the integration of all of the panels into it. Let's buckle up. What we can see now is the CAD design of the right console frame. We'll now be looking at the construction of this and then the integration of all the panels into it. The first step is to source the materials needed, which is primarily 18mm MDF, and then to finish some 6mm MDF that will be the skin of the console. So I've sourced the wood that we see on screen from a local supplier, and I'm quite fortunate that they offer a cutting service, so straight from the get-go these are all to the exact dimensions needed. The next step is to machine them, which is straightforward in that a lot of them are cutouts just to allow the supports to run down the sides and for wires to pass through the centre. And laid out before us now is everything that makes up the initial frame. So I'll go ahead now and assemble all of that together. For the completed frame, I'll bring up a view of the CAD design and we can look at the two of them together. And as tends to be the case, once it's been designed in CAD, the whole thing just slots together just as intended, everything to the exact size needed. Next, I put the aluminium rails in place. These are the mounting rails for the panels, and as we can see now I'm doing a test fit, so I'm marking out where I'll drill the mounting holes into the mounting rail. And there we go, so that's everything now ready for the panels to be mounted into it. I also look to test fit some wooden boards which will make up a floor within the console. I'm now at a point where I will look to paint this, so I'll start by sanding it, priming it, and then at this point then after priming it I'll sand it and paint it. And there we go. And although that's either end done, it will then be the skins, these 6mm MDF skins, that will be the main large painted item that will really complete the look of the console and enclose it all. For the console floor, I'll start to mark out where some of the various electrical components and items will go. In terms of powering the right console, I happen to have some industrial power supplies from server data cabinets, which makes sense to utilise those now. In fact, we can see those now. I'll start the process of panel integration and we can see just how tight the fit is, and this is a benefit of really taking the time during the CAD design phase to ensure everything will fit together, so it all just now drops into place. So now starts that process of building up the frame and all of the internals. And we'll just take a moment to have a closer look at that now. And I've got the trusty old RS485 network installed there. And what we can see is the master unit there. And things start to move along now as I have populated at this point the majority of all of the console frame. We'll just take a look at that. The layout's coming together. I'm still jiggling a few bits around just to see the best placement of various things like the USB hub, etc. Something to turn my attention to now is all of the backlighting for the whole of the Simpit. I turn my attention to the left console and I'm running an exercise here to understand the current draw of the backlighting for each panel within it, and then I'm drawing all of the wiring around from that ready to be to hand to interface into the right console. The reason for testing, measuring and understanding the current draw for all of the panels is to ensure that when I cluster together a number of dimmer units, I'm doing it in a way that doesn't exceed what each of those can handle. We can see on screen a number of dimmer units I got initially, ones that are fairly cheap online. They're not rated particularly high in terms of the current they can handle. I mean, we can see it could be, you could mistake that for thinking it's 8 amp, but it's 0.8 of an amp, so it's 800 milliamps, absolute max. I probably won't push it past 500 milliamp. I've also sourced a few of the dimming units and a couple that are more capable of doing some of the heavy lifting, where, for example, the consoles, that they're powered through one dimmer unit and that could run up to a couple of amp. And this is where having a bespoke master control panel for all of the lighting will come into play, because I'll be able to isolate the power so it's either on or off, and it'll act as a kill switch to all of the backlighting. So I'll continue the work to take all of the backlighting for the left console and the front dash and draw them all the way around so they're ready to be interfaced into the right console. For the front dash here, there's a few things to tap into, like for example the backlighting of the MFCD buttons, and that the power that goes into that now controls that plus a cooling fan for the displays, so there was a bit of an exercise of splitting those into two separate powered functions. I can now look to test fit the skins that run on the outer and inner sides of the console, and this looks to really make it feel so much more completed. We also get a look here at the master control panel for all the lighting, and then all of the various other panels. Now, one panel that's not built yet is a Canopy panel, and we can see a blank plate there in its place. So I'll go ahead and design and 3D print a unit for this that we can see on screen now. The main switch I've used in this panel is an automotive part, and it works really well because I can use it as a two-stage trigger. First stage primes it, second stage jettisons a canopy. Into the future I will 3D print a proper handle for this switch. Short term I'm using the one we see here, which I will paint black to hide that symbology. Primed, release. Brilliant, so really like that two-stage trigger. I'll return now to the backlighting and disassemble some of the dimmer units and desolder the potentiometers that sit on those boards. I then go ahead and put in place my own breakout pins, and we can see that on a unit I've modified here. And I can then go ahead and interface my own potentiometers into these. And whilst it's early doors, this starts to show how the power supplies are being fed, and the connections from the panels we see there right down and channel through to those dimming units. And as I continue to build these up, I get to a point where all of the power is fed to the units via these dimming units. Even at this stage, the backlighting still exists in a on-off state, but it will be when the lighting panels dropped into place a little bit further down the line and those potentiometers are interfaced to the dimming units, that's when I will gain the brightness control. But it's looking good and it's coming along. So we'll just take a moment now to look at the master control panel that I've built, which is custom to this particular Simpit, and we'll see that being powered up and cycled and powered down. Brilliant. And it feels so good to be able to actually have control of all the backlighting now, and ultimately that I'll be able to dim it. It's also really cool that I'll have dedicated switches to isolate particular functions, such as lighting just for the hood and lighting for additional controls. So that's the right console now constructed. We can also see the extension unit to the side of it, which will be to hold maps and flight documentation and things like that. I'll just take a close-up look. So in the next video, we'll take some time to bring this online and look at the whole of the console in use. Thanks for watching.